And we're back, brothers and sisters. It wasn't so long ago. Just yesterday seems like forever, right? You missed us already, just like we miss you every time. So don't forget to click the button, subscribe. That's the only way you can really do good in this world nowadays. Because, Glenn, I don't know, is there any good things we can talk about today? Actually, we prefer to talk about good things. So adversity that we're going to mention today on the show is not to scare you and make you run under and hide and, and feel sick afterwards. No, it's actually, we're going to present some things that you can maybe think about and figure out for yourself through, what's that keyword? What are we using? Discernment. Through discernment, figure out for yourself what the solution for you in your life. Because we can't really tell you. We can only share things that work for us and work for the people that actually apply those things to themselves. So I talk too much. Glenn, what's up?
Pretty good today, Alex. A lot of things going on. Let me ask the people out there, do you feel comfortable with your money in the bank right now? Especially when we have banks starting to go bankrupt. And that's a contagion that could spread to a bank near you and the bank that has your money in their account. Oh, and by the way, when you put money in a bank, it's no longer your money. It's the bank's money. That's why they're giving you a return on it. So the bank lends out a minimum 10 times what you've lent them to flood to keep the so-called economic system going. But right now, because the interest rates are going up, to try to put a cap on inflation, because all the money that the central banks have printed into existence and is sending all around to the world, like Ukraine, for example, now they're starting to look a little weak. Some of these institutions could be closing, and also those zombie corporations that could only stay afloat through cheap money lending and who kept incurring more debt just to pay off the interest on the previous debt. The whole thing looks like it's going to, we're in the quickening, and it looks like it's going to be tough for a lot of people. But we're going to tell you how to, what we believe is the best way to prepare for what is coming our way.
Well, they call it quantitative easement, right? That's the non-scary word to tell them we'll print more money, and then somehow we will launder it, right? Well, we know how they launder it now. They're doing it through countries like Ukraine, for example. But it's already went a bust. First bank went down, Silicon Valley Bank. What do you know about this bank, Glenn?
Well, that was on Friday, but actually there was its problems have been building up for a while since the Federal Reserve and a lot of central banks around the world have been raising interest rates at a record pace just to try and slow down the inflation. Last Wednesday, it was Silvergate, a banking institution for cryptocurrencies. And they've been in the market lately, too, a lot. Been in the media for nefarious things, closing down, this, that. I don't call it a cryptocurrency. I call it a kleptocurrency because there's a lot of thievery and stealing going on.
All right, let's watch the video. We have the video going on here.
Forbes listed Silicon Valley among the best of America's banks for 2023, just days before it collapsed.
I am absolutely shocked at the swiftness of how the entire fiasco unfolded.
Rising interest rates limited tech companies' ability to raise money, forcing them to burn through their cash and pull money out of SVB on March 8th to fund client redemption.
Glenn, is it the rising interest rates that prevented them from fundraising? Or something else have? That's what you just said?
Well, rising interest rates are going to expose a lot of falsities that have been going on for a long time. But it's inevitable. Or else, look, the Federal Reserve has two options. Either blow up the monetary system, or it's going to blow up the financial system. There's no soft landing. Go this way or that way. It's going to be a hard way. And that's it.
All right, let's keep watching this.
SVB sold $21 billion worth of government bonds at a loss as they plummeted in value when interest rates climbed. Still strapped for cash, SVB announced the sale of $2.25 billion in stock, which sent its stock plummeting. A bank run ensued when too many customers tried to withdraw their money at the same time. Tech financier John Ruffalo analyzed how its collapse would affect Canada and shared his findings with Ottawa.
We were able to produce that data over 48 hours, which gave us the necessary statistics to understand that the impact to Canada was quite low.
Our national banking regulator has temporarily seized the assets of the loan branch of SVB in this country. Its business in Canada primarily lending to corporate clients, and the branch doesn't hold any commercial or individual deposits.
It was a very sobering moment for tech.
C100 is a global community of Canadians in tech. SVB was a foundational partner.
They would end up sponsoring events. They would provide funding to organizations and not-for-profits such as ours. They brought a lot of entrepreneurs together.
SVB's demise highlights the risk introduced in 2018 when then-President Donald Trump rolled back regulation put in place to ensure the financial crisis wouldn't happen again.
Oh, it's his fault again.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's blame it on him. He's not even around. Sure. Don't blame it on the Biden administration.
Yeah, that's the previous administration's fault. But did you see how they snuck this? Well, it's clear they were supporting some agendas there, right? I don't know what is C100.
I don't even know myself.
Yeah, but did you know that the bank? That's what one of the things they've been known for is they in community investments. They were investing into the alphabet soups. And I don't mean Google's. I mean like
the woke.
The woke, yes.
Yes.
And maybe it is. And maybe it is something to do with Trump. He did say, go woke and go broke. How did he say?
If you go woke, we're going to let you go broke.
Yeah, we're going to let you go broke. Yeah, that's what happened, right? So that was one of the things. But they also invested into Chinese techno companies, right? That was one of the things.
This was going on, like the people on the inside, the CEOs and everybody, they were aware of this on Wednesday. They were getting their money out of the bank. They were selling their shares in the bank. It's always the mom and pops.
Or they also got bonuses, right? All the bank employees or whatever, the executives, they all got bonuses before like literally hours before the feds came in and closed the bank.
Like that's what always happens. I agree. But just a couple of weeks ago, I was asked a question by you or Anonymisses. What would you do with your money now? Like, where do you invest it? And I had said, well, I like cash, but not in the banking system, because cash is king for a little while until you transition into some type of other crypto or whatever type of currency. It's going to be maybe a central bank digital currency or something else that's going to be backed by my next choice was precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium. You know, you should hold your wealth outside of the current banking system because now it's starting to get exposed. And these high interest rates trying to slow down the inflation, well, it's not doing a very good job. And people are already finding it very hard to keep paying, their daily expenses.
Okay, so there's it didn't stop right there, right? With the SVB bank, it didn't stop there. What's the next? What is the next?
SVB, that was on Friday, and then Monday there was a run. The share value of was it First Signature, another big bank in New York. There was a run at that bank now too. So people in the know are starting to want to get their wealth out of the banking industry. Maybe they're transitioning, putting it into the bigger banks, but that could be a little bit dangerous also. The bigger banks are not just because they're bigger doesn't mean they're better. They're not as solid as people think too. And the bigger banks just have more loans out to people or businesses that their asset value is starting to go down. So even the banks are going to be underwater.
So is it by design, Glenn?
Everything is by design. There's no free markets. It's all regulated. It's all controlled. The big boys, they make all the money, and the poor little people, we work and we pay for it.
And this collapse is definitely by design. So you cannot blame it on Putin and Russia. Well, you can maybe if you perceive them to be part of the equation, but not the sole agitator of the market collapse. Like I said, well, did you know there's a war? That's why we have the energy crisis. Well, here's a good point. Russia is the most sanctioned. This is the Russian bot point. Russia is the most sanctioned country in the world, right, Glenn? That's by far.
Yep.
By far.
Yep.
All of the financial institution, no SWIFT, no like assets frozen.
The oligarchs.
All the oligarchs. And it was done specifically to collapse the Russian economy. So the people will revolt against the administration, including, with Putin ahead of it. And look what's happening.
By the way, the Russian bank is the country of Russia is one of the only nations in the world that have no debt. So the Russian ruble is a free-floating currency like all the other currencies, but they have no debt. So that should be valued even more. And the fact that Russia is talking with China, India, South Africa, and a whole bunch of other nations to back their currency by precious metals, as the Western currency, the US dollar, the world reserve currency, is starting to be exposed as having a lot less value than what we were perceived to believe.
So don't you see that now, like the whole Ukrainian thing makes sense? Well, first of all, it's how else would you cash the money? How else would you launder the money? You make the crack money on the streets of the United States. So the crack money is the quantitative easement, right? You print the money, you send it somewhere in Ukraine. We just know, we understand, and we did the shows on a whole bunch of corruptions when millions and millions of dollars are just free floating there and leaving the country. Well, it's billions.
A billion is 1,000 million.
Yeah, we're talking about like a regular person, well, by regular person, like a wife of a politician was caught crossing the border with $400 million in her purse. Like that's, if it's a corporate, some kind of corporate transaction, that's probably billions of sort, right? And that money floating back into the pockets of the people that printed them, kickback, I'm with you, democracy, that's what we call it, right? And now the Ukrainian war makes total sense. If you guys still believe that it's the Ukrainian hating Russians and Russians hating Ukrainians and that's the purpose of the war, wake up. You haven't been around for the past 20 years. By the way, again, I'm going to mention it. I'm going to state it here straight. I'm not pro-conflicts in the world. I'm not pro-Russian wars. I'm only pro-American wars because they're good at it, and I'm on the side of the good.
Well, we're pro-people in actuality.
Yeah,
so,
that was a joke. That was a terrible joke.
All these wars, killing and hurting everybody, like all for what? Financial gain? You see, Ukraine is the last year it was the third most. What was it? The most
the third largest
importer
arms importer in 2022.
In 2022, I mean that's such a small country. So it's not like they could afford.
Well, it's
those
not
arms.
it's not that small. It's 35 million people or whatever it was before the Russia took a nice chunk away. It's the size of Canada in population wise.
Again, like I said, a small country.
A small country, yeah.
In the big scheme of things, So it wasn't them who was affording all these weapons to fight against Russia. What was it? Oh, the Western countries, European countries, taking money from their citizens, printing more money to give over to Ukraine, causing inflation here in the West, so that Ukraine could launder this money and send it back to the people while it still has value. And then the people, like in the military-industrial complex, who were making all these weapons to go to war in Ukraine, and then this currency still has value right now, but it's dropping fast. So they still buy tangible assets with it. They buy stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, silver. They keep some cash around their houses. And these people have so much money. They buy diamonds, they buy art, they buy fancy cars, and so they have so much. They are like one person with 10 mansions, one person with 50 properties, and then you get the average person here in the West struggling because the cost of living is gone too high, and the price to afford their properties, the mortgages are getting out of hand, and so too much of their income goes towards paying for the mortgage, and they have very little left over to put it into the consumer economy. So now we're going to see a lot of businesses going bankrupt because of that, because there's not enough currency circulating.
Well, in Canada, the Canadian credit card debt reached a historic high. Don't take my word for it.
And that's just starting this hard fall that we're going to have. So a lot of people are going to get hurt very bad. A lot of people will be declaring a personal bankruptcy. There'll be a lot of business bankruptcies. I mean, if the banks can go bankrupt, then what about mom and pop?
They can't. They can't go bankrupt. Because who's going to pay taxes?
And in America too, credit card debt is at its all-time high. So our government here in Canada is it's at its all-time debt levels, and they just don't know what to do. We're going to be hearing, I think, Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister, is coming out at the end of the month with her new budget. But every budget that they've been putting out for years now has just been worse than the previous budget. So.
But okay, let's listen to Pierre Poilievre and what he has to say about the current state of the economy in Canada.
Go get it.
Here's what they know. When I was the minister responsible for housing, you could rent an average apartment in the 10 biggest cities for $950 a month. Now, it's over $2,000 a month. When I was housing minister, it was $1,400 a month for the average mortgage. Now it's $3,200. And 1/5 of mortgage holders at CIBC are actually watching their mortgage grow as liberal deficits push up interest rates on their monthly payments. They've done nothing to stand up to the gatekeepers that block housing construction. Will they get out of the way so homes can be built and we can bring home ownership for our youth?
Well, he's telling it like it is. But there's also another side, how you pay for your mortgage. Yes, some businesses, they are paying more. The people's salary is going up, but they go up into a higher tax bracket. We have a progressive tax bracket here. So you go into a higher tax bracket, and so you take home just a little bit more. And they tell you the cost of living is 6%. When we know if you live the exact same way this year as you lived last year and the year before, you're looking at probably double that, 12%. So everybody at the grassroots level is working on a net negative basis. Like, it's a net loss. It's just almost like the World Economic Forum 2030 agenda. You'll own nothing and be happy.
And Christian, whatever her name is, you just mentioned.
Chrystia Freeland.
Chrystia Freeland. What is she minister of? The Minister of Economy?
Right now she's the Finance Minister of Canada.
Right? So she has the she has the big role to take in WEF, and there's a lot of documents about her and Trudeau. The moment that they join the government, it also shows how they not really representing our interest. And 15-minute cities are coming to Alberta near you. If you think Alberta is ready to go and they're ready to secede from Canada and join United States, they're still implementing all those 15-minute cities. They're still trying to stay afloat with the global agenda. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on, really. Here's my question, Glenn. This seems like an assault on people. All those wars, economic hardships, on ordinary, on middle class and low class Canadians and Americans and Westerners in general, Europeans as well. That's an assault. For example, if you're getting sexually assaulted in the United States or Canada, you can join a #MeToo movement. What movement do we start here
Actually, we're starting to read about the Roman Catholic Church, the people at the top of the church, the people who were leading the popes, for example, who have now passed on, and how they knew about pedophilia. You know, we have so many homosexual pedophiles in this so-called religion or religious belief, and they've been doing everything they can to try and cover it up, smooth it over, sweep it under the rug. And yet, the more they're trying, now lately we see the more they're coming into the mainstream media. So it's starting to be exposed at just the level of sickness that is apparent in this whole belief system. And by the way, they are also one of the richest organizations in the world. They tell everybody else, "Oh, you should give to the poor, this and that." But you know, it's supposed to be like a non-profit organization. How could you be one of the richest organizations in the world and be non-profitable at the same time?
They were the biggest land owner in the world. I don't know if they still are. I don't know.
They had the most properties in the world, and many years ago, 25, 30 years ago, that was taken over by the Golden Arches, McDonald's.
Wow. And who owns Golden Arches?
McDonald's.
Vatican. No, I'm just spreading some misinformation here. I wouldn't be so far-fetched, though.
St. John Paul II accused of protecting pedophiles, fueling debate over late Pope's fast track to sainthood.
Well, Montreal, that's a callback to Montreal. Wasn't he taken into sainthood in Vatican? They had a big mass for him here at the Olympic Stadium.
Look, if people locally can't understand and they say, "Oh, that doesn't matter, it's all the way in Rome," or, you know, I have nothing to do with that. We have huge amounts of this been going on in our own country.
Well, in Montreal, we have St. Joseph's Cathedral, right? That's a magnificent structure on the side of the mountain, and it's a really cool lookout place, and you can go inside. And even if you're not religious or have anything to do, it's a cool place to visit in Montreal, one of the major sites, right? Has a lot of mystery attached to it and magic in some ways. But it's also not that many people know that's the Vatican supervised place. It's not the patronage of Vatican. It's not under Diocese of Quebec or Canada. It's under Diocese of Vatican. So it's a major, major institution for Vatican here, right in our backyard. So it does affect you directly.
It's the Pope, the cardinals, bishops, archbishops, then the regional top guys, and then your priests at your local level. And they all know. This has been going on for a long time. Now, it's for you to know, for the people to know. Say, hey, we don't like this pedophile stuff. It's got to go. Never mind you preaching the Bible and the words of God. Start off with yourself.
Well, it starts at home, right? It always starts at home. You only preach at home. Like if you can't I take you home like your family, quite literally. If you can't keep peace at your own home, how can you spread peace anywhere else?
Do as you say as you do. Just live by that mantra alone, and the whole world would get a better place to be. We'd all get along a lot more, and you'd stamp up a lot of corruption and gross idiosyncrasies that are going on.
Montreal, the Jesuit of Canada, have released a list of
it's the Jesuits.
Priests
the
and
Jesuits
brothers they
of
saw
Canada.
were credibly accused of sexual abusing minors over the past 7 years. I mean, doesn't seem like a comprehensive list. 27. I'm sure there's a lot more.
That's 70 years. That's 70 years this has been going on. It's just not a couple of guys getting caught a couple of years ago. It's everywhere. Look at the Aboriginal people in Canada, what they've been through. You know, look at all the children in the orphanages, what they went through. And they had to live through that and carry it around with them all these years. And now it's starting to come out. Good. It's good that we're having an awakening. You know, we could be a little bit ashamed of our past, but we would be more ashamed if we didn't use the past to make the present better and the future bright.
Okay, I got a connection here. So MK Ultra, right? So things like MK Ultra, we've learned, I was part of that study. No, I wasn't, but I've studied the thing, and you can go to our podcast that we did with the lawyer Alan Stein on MK Ultra. If you don't know, Alan Stein sued CIA, Canadian government, McGill, and Al-Anon Institute, and for experimenting on people. So what they learn is that with things like MK Ultra, if you traumatize children at the young age, you compartmentalize their brain, so you can later on program them however you want to program them, because the brain compartmentalizes itself, and based on the trauma that happened to them in the young age, you can basically manipulate them in any way you want to. So the Jesuits and the Catholic Church always been part of this, like the global conspiracy thing, where they had played a major role because of the reach, throughout world community. Glenn, I don't know, you don't really think the way I do, or Anonymisses, but you think it has something to do where Catholic Church specifically has a big role in structuring the brainwashed people the way they're acting today from the past 70 years. You can tell. Actually, I read an article. I should have brought it up, but I read an article earlier this morning that North American IQ dropped significantly in the past 70 years. And that probably has everything to do with the stories that we're reading now. And that's why they are able to get away with the things that they are doing and destroying the middle class, destroying the, and controlling the lower classes. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you can blame all these institutions. What we do is we just expose it. But I blame the individual. It's the collective. It's us. We allow these things to happen to us. We don't question anything. We don't try and figure out, the right from the wrong. We just do what we're told. Good little servants. Yes, we just up. And so this is what leads whole nations astray. If people, they have faith in democracy. Well, you lose faith in democracy when you have a conversation with the average voter and you see what's important to them, or how little they know about their democratic institutions, supposedly democratic institutions that they're voting for. But that's just the way it is. So a person now has to take responsibility for themselves and stop blaming everybody else or everything else. And that gives that empowers them to navigate themselves to making the proper choices to get from here to there the most efficient and best economical way possible.
But the society is pretty dumb, right? Instead of focusing on things that are really important to us right now, like survival, right? Yeah. We focus on the things is like, you assaulted me by showing me a finger. I'm going to take you to court.
You have all these things going on in the world of huge significance and importance. And here locally, you have neighbors. They're in conflict with each other. And so they're swearing at each other, these two guys. One gave the finger, flipped the middle finger to the other neighbor. And all this ended up in court. I mean, they say it's men, but I would say that's a man-child. And instead of putting him in the court, let's put him in a sandbox and get them to learn how to play nice. Really, boys? You pull the finger and then you go to court for that? Like, this is an important thing?
Well, it's important because part of the story, apparently somebody was arrested. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to take you to court over this. No, the cop came in and arrested somebody.
For showing the finger to the other guy. Like, really? I'm sure a police officer has something else to do. I'm sure the lawyers, I'm sure that even...
depends on the level of wokeness.
Yeah, or uselessness. They're woke. They should maybe go back to sleep and start over again.
Or just, a lot of people would tell you, and we're not the first ones. You heard this before, and we'll repeat this again. Just because your feelings are hurt, it doesn't mean you're right. Right?
That's right. Yeah, that's something else we're going to be watching. It was a nice little 2-3 minute part that we're going to be watching about the woke. Let's wake up the woke to the realities of the real world.
Well, Konstantin Kisin, right? He's a MP in England, right? In the parliament in England. And he did this presentation. In January, there was this big conference in London, I believe in Oxford. And they had the left and right communicating with each other regarding subjects of like climate change and gender fluidity and men versus women, whatever, black versus white, racism and all that stuff. And Konstantin Kisin, he spoke on conservative end of the dial, and he comes from Russia, but he's not what you think. He does not work for Putin. He did discredit himself as a good Russian, so he's definitely a Western at this point. But does not make them a bad human being. You know, not all Russians living outside of Russia are bad human beings. Like, look at me. I'm a good human being. You watching this show? You enjoying this? Okay, let me shut up. Let's watch Konstantin Kisin.
And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims, to believe that you have no agency, to believe that what you must do to improve the world is to complain, is to protest, is to throw soup on paintings. And we on this side of the house are not on this side of the house because we do not wish to improve the world. We sit on this side of the house because we know that the way to improve the world is to work, is to create, it is to build. And the problem with woke culture is that it's trained too many young minds like yours to forget about that. Thank you very much.
Can't get any more down to earth than that. I mean, how simple is that? You know, it's very easy for a so-called woke culture or a whining, complaining culture to arise when the way of life has been so easy for so long. But now it's changing, and it's changing rather quickly, and it's going to speed up even more. So these woke people, they're going to have real problems to complain about. Now, the only thing that I wish not to happen, though, is like, let's say, for example, a transgender. When the pendulum starts swinging the other way and the ultra-conservatives start pulling into power, I don't want to see, you know, this guy's taking out frustration on a transgender person or something like that. You know, we don't need that violence. This person is another human being. It's even though they have a different point of view from the majority, they're still our brothers and sisters. We have to share the planet with these people. That's God's creation too.
That's a really good point you bring up. How about the other point? Events of the last few years, right? We were divided by authority, by institutions, by medical authority, by government, by federal government, by local we had to show papers to go in the shops. Not everybody could go in the shops because they didn't have the papers. And people were treated as second-class citizens for making personal health choices. Now people tell you, well, it wasn't personal. You weren't doing it for yourself. You were doing it for your next-door neighbor who couldn't get the shot. And then, you know, later on we found out that shot doesn't do shot because it doesn't protect you from anything. You still need to get a booster. It doesn't protect your neighbor. You can still transmit it. It doesn't protect your neighbor because your neighbor is obese, overweight, or diabetic, or anything else, or has other unhealthy practices that anything can get him at any point.
Stressed out too. Anxiety levels, stress levels have just shot up since then. You know, about these shots, soon we're going to need a shot from all the bad shots we've been taking. But instead of taking a shot, I would suggest a combination of ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, and also immune system builders, your basic vitamins and your minerals, vitamin C, vitamin D3, zinc, magnesium, and boron. Put them all together, and and you're probably going to have to see a naturopath for a complete cleanse.
Yeah.
Okay?
You sound like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan almost got canceled. You want to get canceled? I'm just kidding. That's, by the way, that pendulum is swinging. But on that thought, let me finish that thought. You're right, because now pendulum is swinging. And now people having regrets about making certain choices. And some of them like, oh, government overreached. We shouldn't have done this. That was wrong. Even though a lot of people told them it was wrong, and you didn't think for yourself. But we can get angry and be mad at them and continue to divide ourselves from our brothers and sisters, or through compassion, we can show them how they should have acted in the moment of division.
Before you asked me if everything was engineered, and I told you everything was engineered, to the point that even Hollywood would put out a movie about something that we thought would be, never happen, and yet it would happen 4, 5, 6 years later.
Yeah, preconditioning, right? What are they called? Predictive programming, right? That's nothing new, and that is the MK Ultra. That is the MK Ultra we're talking about it. So MK Ultra is with us every day, all day, with your smartphones, with your YouTubes, with your TikToks, with your Instagrams. They know what you're watching. They're also pushing things through your feed. And that C11 thing that they're trying to put on us again is going to even give them more control over the things that we watch or the things that we're exposed to. And okay, I have a hope for Glenn. I have a hope for myself, and I have a hope for people around me that are in contact with me, and we share information, and maybe for some reason they get lucky enough that they can think for themselves. But we still live in a society where our children spend up to 8 hours away from homes, where they get brainwashed constantly. Not everybody lucky enough to send the kid to a private school or homeschool them. And okay, even if the school's okay and they get lucky enough to get a good teacher who's not in the job to brainwash their children or your children into changing genders, but actually being a good pupil and teaches your kids something, teaches them to learn, they are still influenced by 20, 30 other kids in the classroom on daily basis. They share the pop culture, they share the things they see on TV, the videos and all that stuff. How do you protect your children from this? What do you do? How do you teach your kids to discern? Again, it starts from home. You assign that responsibility on yourself. You do not delegate this responsibility to your spouse. You do not delegate this responsibility to a teacher in school, the neighbor, or anybody, or TV or YouTube. You are responsible for your children. That responsibility never goes away. You are responsible. Because face it, at some point you're going to get really old and you would need some kind of assistance. You would love to be finishing your days in a good home with loving environment, surrounded by your family that loves you and treats you in the way you want to be treated. And the only way to do it if you raise them in that way.
Between now and then, I just want to say one more thing before we close out today's amazing segment. Cash outside of the bank. Cash is king temporarily. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium, physical in your own possession. Valuable real estate that's mostly paid for. You don't want to get into a higher mortgage rate and watch that. You have to give it back, and somebody else is going to pick it up for peanuts. Keep learning. There are going to be big changes in the job market, and it's going to take perseverance. Strong people are going to come out of this okay. It is what it is, no matter what. So do it. And that's all I can say for now. We'll keep you updated for more events that will be happening. This is not going to stop. This is just, the gates are starting to open, and it's a floodgate. It's coming.
Yes, brothers and sisters, change is always for the better because it gives you an opportunity to get better. And through adversity, that's when you grow. That's when you become stronger. You become better person for yourself. You become better person for your family, a man, a husband, a father. And if you're happen to be a woman. Yes, a wife, a mother.
Amen, brother.
Amen. So on that note, we are winning. Continue to be a winner. Stay in the light, brothers and sisters. We'll see you on the next one.